This is Believe in Buckeyes. I'm Brian Browning with All-American quarterback Chindy Chekwa. This show is brought to you by Bet Online. Sure, tell them about Bet Online.
Yeah, bet online. So you can get a 50% free bet up to $250 on your first deposit with Bet Online using the promo code BLEAV, that's BLEAV. And there's some stuff to bet on, man. I don't know if you saw that 100-meter dash, man. That had to be the best or the most impressive 100-meter dash I've ever seen. The most competitive, right?
Yeah, that's for sure.
Like if that happened outside and you're watching, it's just a tie. You just call it a tie, right?
Everybody shake hands and go home. That's right.
Right.
But shout out to Noah Lyles bringing home the gold. I think first time United States won the gold medal in 100 since 20 years. So we got through the boat years. I think a guy from France won. But it's back where it belongs, right? Back to the United States. So, yeah. But if you have any issues with gambling, always feel free to reach out to 1-800-GAMBLER. They're 24/7 to help you out with anything you may need in that category. But, yeah, man, we're not here to talk about the Olympics. We're here to talk about Ohio State football, man. We got actual football to talk about, man. Camp kicked off here on the 31st, July 31st, August 1st, somewhere in there. So the guys are fully padded now. They had some practices open up for some fans. Then they put some pads on, and we got looks like competition is in the air, right?
Yeah, there's some competition, man. And I like that, right? There's, a lot of times if you play the sport, it doesn't matter at any level. It doesn't matter if it's a peewee, all the way up to NFL. There's some politics that's involved. There's some different decisions, but it seems like Ohio State is letting guys compete. No matter how much we ask for them to set that offensive line, pick a quarterback and some of these other things, and letting these guys compete. And I think that's kind of their foundation. But I think the primary areas where there's real, competition, or appears to be some competition on the offensive line and at the quarterback position.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. So obviously we have Will Howard, who transferred over, right? We have Devin Burn the Boats Brown, who's been fighting for that number one spot, and we had several conversations about it. I think we both feel, right? We feel that the number one starter will be Will Howard once the season starts, but Devin Brown has also been getting a lot of reps with the ones as well. I was also hearing some reports that Julian Sand got a couple reps with the ones as well, but obviously he's a true freshman. He's not really going to be, in serious contention. We don't believe he'd be in serious contention to win that job. But Devin Brown and Will Howard's kind of going back and forth. I believe they kind of had a big scrimmage here on Saturday. You hear about some big plays that Will Howard made with his feet. You hear about Devin Brown making some big plays with his arm and hitting some guys deep downfield. But it's kind of interesting, right? I mean, what do you think is the benefit of not just going ahead and setting that starter and letting these guys kind of go out and actually, kind of prove it on the field?
Yeah, I think the biggest benefit is that everybody's involved, everybody's engaged. You don't get in that situation as a second string quarterback where you feel like I'm not really going to play, so I'm going through the motions and getting ready for next year to compete for that spot. You're competing now. You're ready to go week in, week out, all the way through camp. You're locked in, and it's a long season. Anything can happen. Anything can happen in the next couple of weeks. Anything can happen throughout the season. Then you have the playoff. That adds another element to the season that we've never experienced in college football. So the benefit, and the other benefit is just, the locker room, being able to, have guys prove it on the field and have that decision be made on the field. But the reality is, in my opinion, it's not so much that Devin Brown won't get a fair shake. It's just hard to make these decisions. Yeah. And as human beings, they're limited by their ability to process. You can only make the decisions based on what you've seen. And the reality is, Will Howard has played football for a long time. He's played a lot of real games, and Devin Brown has not. So Devin Brown's at a disadvantage in that, that for that simple fact. He got opportunities last year because of injury. He didn't really get a chance to, actually show what he can do. And when he did get a chance, he wasn't very, very impressive. And that lack of real game film is hard for him to compete. It's hard for him to show it in camp, competing with a guy who's played a significant amount of time. So to me, the competition is somewhat ongoing. And, you give Will Howard a chance to lead the team. You see how it goes. And the competition is Akron. You know, some of those teams that you expect to beat, but you want to see how these players play and lead that team through those games.
Yeah, and another aspect of the things I also would like to throw out is the locker room, right? I mean, you have Devin Brown, who's now been in the program for 3 years, right? I mean, he's been in the program, obviously doing everything he can. Obviously, we know how college football is set up now. He could have easily, decided to lead the program last year once it was determined he wouldn't be the starter, right? Was going with Kyle McCord. He'll let the program in. Right, and then in the offseason hits, right? We it's rumors that we're going to get a guy out the transfer portal. Then we actually signed Will Howard. He could have left in, but he decides he's going to stick around and he wants to be a part of the team. So I mean that means something to the locker room, right? To see a guy, kind of more or less bypassing opportunities to lead a program and decide he's going to stick around here and try to compete. So I feel. If you're Coach Day, it's like, okay, we as a staff we brought this guy Will Howard in for a reason. He only has 1 year college football. We know what he could do. We think we could use that to be successful. But he has to go out there and earn it, right? We're not just about to just say like, okay, we know who you are. We know we brought you here for this reason. Forget everything else. You have to kind of go out there and prove it. I mean, Devin Brown wasn't some small recruit, right? He was a big time recruit and something that we was proud to have part of our recruiting class when he came to Ohio State. So you kind of have to stand by that, right? You just, you recruited me. I'm still here. 3 year in the process, obviously as a quarterback, we know it's going to be one of the more tougher positions to kind of make that adjustment from high school to college. Let me compete. Now, Will Howard's the best man, right? He's doing the things, like he's executing better than I'm executing. I think the team will see it, particularly the offensive line, right? They're the ones that are really battling. The team will see it, and they'll respect the decision. But if you just kind of hand a guy a position and you're watching Devin Brown work his tail off every day, it's kind of like, you could see. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's far-fetched to kind of see how that may kind of pull on guys in a certain direction. And obviously this year we have really high hopes, right? We need everyone to be locked in and bought in to exactly the decisions that are being made so we can kind of achieve that ultimate goal. So you lit a play out on the field. I think that's fair.
Yeah, and football is an interesting game, man. You can go from never really seeing the field, being so distant from the field, right? If you're the backup quarterback who doesn't get to play week in and week out, to a guy getting nicked up, and now you're the guy who has to lead the team into a playoff. Cardell Jones, right? You're the guy who has to lead the team to a national championship. So things could change overnight. And then the other thing is, it's not just competitions. When you go to camp, man, it's not just competitions for the starting role. It's a competition for the number 2 guy. Mm-hmm. Competition for the number 3 guy. It's a competition for the guy who may never be able to get on the field and may have to end up transferring. So you got a competition at 1 and 2 between Will Howard and Devin Brown, but there's a guy, Julian Sain, who's trying to compete for the 3rd spot with Lincoln Kingholz. And he's also trying to compete for next year, right? He's also trying to set himself up for next year to show those coaches, I may have an opportunity to start next year. Because you only have limited time to really show that. If you're not playing in those games during the season, you're going to have this camp, you're going to have next spring, and then we're back in camp again. So I like Devin Brown's attitude. I like his approach to the game. I'm rooting for him.
Yeah.
And I expect him to continue to push Will Howard every step of the way. And I'm hoping that he continues to. And honestly, if Devin Brown does get named a starter, that means one or two things happen. One, he just performed so good that it was like there's no question. Because he has to – it's one of those things where if it's close, Will Howard's going to be the starter. Yeah. Even if he outperformed Will Howard by a little bit, Will Howard still going to be the starter in my opinion. He has to show something that, outclasses everything that Will Howard has ever done in real games for them to put their full faith and trust in Devin Brown moving forward to lead the team.
Yeah.
So that's one scenario. The other scenario is Will Howard was just so bad that we got to go with the next guy. So we're hoping it's not the second. Yeah. And if he does get an opportunity to take the lead, we're hoping it's the first scenario.
Yeah, right. And it's funny, it's just like, 1 year ago, right, we had a quarterback competition, Devin Brown and Kyle McCord, and it almost felt like like neither one of these guys are really performing well enough, but we just gonna kind of make a decision and go with a guy, and they went with McCord. This year it's totally different. Like both of these guys are really kind of knocking it out the park, and now we're back to having another quarterback competition. So we'll kind of see how things play out over the next couple of weeks. But another thing you mentioned here is the offensive line, right? I think we spoke about it probably towards the end of spring. We say, look, we know Ohio State likes the competition ever since Coach Meyer came in. It's an ultra competition environment, from week in and week out. And I feel like Coach Dez kind of followed that trend, keeping things pretty competitive. Like go out there, put your best foot forward every day because you never know, who might be lurking for that spot. But we kind of call like, hey, let's not do that with the offensive line this year. Obviously, last year we had some troubles, especially early on in the season. It really felt like, once again, we always said, not physically, like, right, when the guys was going the right direction, they felt like they were doing a great job, but mentally and identifying exactly who they're supposed to be taking on certain situations, it felt like that was always kind of lacking when it came to our offensive line unit. So we wanted to pick a 5. You guys go out there, you work together, you gel together, everybody kind of learn how to play with each other and kind of take it from there. But Coach Day did not take that approach. We're still seeing a lot of competition around the offensive line. We're still seeing Seth running with the twos, sometimes Hinsman going in with the first unit. A lot of either way, that will kind of work itself out. But the real competition is probably at that right guard position, right? When you have Hinsman kind of rolling in at right guard. I'm going on record, that's my pick, right? That's the guy I would like to see there, just due to the experience. We have Tegra Shabola rolling in at right guard. You have Luke Montgomery rolling in at right guard as well. So it's a lot of competition kind of right there in the middle of the offensive line unit. It seems like they're, still bouncing guys around. Once again, Luke Montgomery is only his second year in the program, but I feel like he had a pretty strong first year. So they kind of figured things out. But what's your thoughts so far about what you're hearing about the offensive line and how things will most likely kind of get set up kind of as camp progresses and they kind of have to start making some decisions, to be frank?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit different. Our concern is, we want that offensive line to be able to mesh and play good collectively. Pick your 5, have your 2 guys who are likely the first guys off the bench and move forward from there. But I will say what feels a little bit different this year is that guys got another year under their belt. It's not so much, we don't know who to play because none of them are performing to a point where they've separated themselves. I think it's more of we got a few guys who can play, right? And I think that's a key difference when you're talking about competition where 2 guys are pushing each other. Both, are capable of being able to play that right guard. Both are capable of coming in and being able to play right tackle. Both are capable of being the center. That's a completely different scenario where we need one of these guys to emerge to be the starter. Right. And I think that's what was different this year versus last year, which in that case, I welcome a little bit of competition still, after what we saw last year, especially early in the season. I'm really hoping that by week 2 of camp, they got their guys, they got that starting group, and maybe the 1 or 2 guys that are in the mix as well, and they continue to build and mesh. And I expect it with Chip Kelly being an offensive coordinator, really being able to man that entire offense and be the head coach of that offense, and still having Ryan Day really still leading the squad. So I feel a little bit better this year than what we saw last year.
Right. And I have to agree. I mean, some competition around that third receiver as well, right? You most likely Tate and Emeka will be the 1 and 2. Obviously, we got Jeremiah Smith, superstar. Probably got to get him on the field some kind of way. But obviously, we got a lot of other good guys around. No one is worried about Ohio State wide receivers. We are on that bandwagon. Whoever plays will be great, fantastic. We all know these guys, all 4 or 5 star guys that really could prove it on the field, man. But man, we got to get into this a little bit, man. I know if you guys are a fan of the show, a couple weeks ago, Dorian Brew, who's a corner from Ohio, essentially moved to Texas. But Ohio guy. His mother is a Ohio State legend here on the track and field. For Ohio State, decided to commit to Oregon. And because of that, we kind of was like, what's going on? We got to get these Oregon guys on the dial. We had a joint call with the Believe in Oregon show. We had a fantastic conversation. with Ethan and Jonathan Stewart, who also is an All-American for Oregon or running back, played in the field for many years. And, we had a good conversation, what their thoughts of joining the Big Ten and, how they feel about things and things of that nature. And, it's like, okay, whatever, right? But then essentially they hit us with a clip this past week. We're going to play this clip for you guys because it's interesting. You guys need to hear it, So play the clip.
Here's the clip.
For college football fans that know the Big Ten, they know that team up north for Ohio State and Michigan. And you guys calling this that team out west, I think is so great because it's showing respect and showing an understanding for the rivalries of the Big Ten, but it's also kind of letting it be known that the Ducks are going to be a force in the Big Ten, and that other teams are probably going to start calling them that team out west because they're not going to want to say their name pretty soon. Yeah, that's
he said we for perspective, I believe it's fans on Twitter. But let's be clear, you guys are still the Oregon Ducks. Let's be very clear about that. You guys are still the Oregon Ducks for further notice. You guys, you're not the team I was. No. You're the Oregon Ducks.
That team I was. Now I saw a lot of different memes going around Twitter after this clip kind of went viral. I know it did within Ohio State and like a Michigan fandom and went viral. But to reach that level of disdain, right? of us just hating to see ducks quacking and stuff like that. Like there has to be a level of a decent amount of history. Oregon is on the rise, and I think they've done a lot here in the past 20 years, that past 2 decades, really since we kind of our era of college football and on. But it's like new money, right? It's like they don't have wealth, like they don't have the deep rooted, they don't have the national championships. They do have the flash. They are built for the NIL era. They are making some noise, and they're going to make some noise. I wouldn't quite call them the Penn State of the West, which I saw a lot of fans. You know my feelings on Penn State, right?
Yeah. A lot of people got to Penn State fast with them. Yeah, they did.
I think they are, not in terms of history, but I think in terms of the future, they are a level above Penn State. But they haven't reached the next level, which is, it comes with national championships, multiple championships. So they got a ways to go. So they're going to be the Oregon Ducks for the foreseeable future. Obviously, we had Zach and Jonathan on the show. Great guys. But, yeah, you guys are the Oregon Ducks. And we are watching because, as you mentioned, Trey McNutt, who is a legacy player. His dad played defensive back at Ohio State. Mm-hmm. He's an Ohio kid, right?
Ohio kid.
And he's the number 2 recruit in the state.
Yes. And
one of the top safety, 5-star safety, just committed to Oregon. That's the second kid out of that played in Ohio. The second kid that was a legacy kid. His parents, his Dorian Bruce's mom ran track star at Ohio State. Mm-hmm. And Trey McNutt's dad played football at Ohio State. So that does make you look over and say, what's going on out there. But that's about it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, man. The Trey McNutt one kind of was an interesting one for me because obviously, like I said, I'm you guys are still the Oregon Ducks, right? Let's just be clear.
Yeah. Put that to bed.
But the Trey McNutt one kind of, to be honest, it really surprised me. I remember when he got his offer, he was a sophomore at Shaker Heights High School up in close to Cleveland, Ohio. So that's Northeast Ohio. So kind of looking forward to. I'm looking forward to this guy being a Buckeye and seeing what he could do. Like, looking at his size, his athletic ability, seemed like he had a fantastic work ethic. I'm looking forward to this guy. And then, in this era, right? NIL era, things kind of shaking up. It's being reported that obviously nothing is unlimited, but it's been reported that Oregon has unlimited NIL. And they're just kind of offering, money out to wazoo. I'm not going to go there because, we did pretty well, right? We still got the number 1 class for this year. But man, that one just kind of stung me, man. Because it just really shook me. I just wouldn't expect that a guy like Trey McNutt would lead the state of Ohio. The Dorian Brew thing was a little bit different, right? He's number 3 corner in the nation. We got the number 1, number 2. So, how many corners can we possibly take? But with the safety, I think we had one safety committed. I mean, not to the recruited tier of McNutt. You would think we'll have been able to kind of find some room and kind of get him in there. But obviously, I don't know how things go recruit. Obviously, I don't know who's calling him and how the conversations are going. But I just would have thought a guy like that would essentially stay home. But now he's going not to that team out west. He's going.
He's going west. He's going west. And what's different now, we talk about NIL in terms of players getting paid, et cetera. But the one thing it does when you actually are getting paid, and we all know this, we all can relate to this because everybody works, or at least adults, right? All adults work jobs, and you have a salary for that job, or you get an hourly pay, or whatever. As soon as the number is put on what you make, the value is set, right? And that's what becomes a little bit tricky in the NIL era because before, Ohio State had a ton of money. What did they spend it on? They changed the carpet, they upgraded the weight room, right? They made the facilities look nice. And everybody gets to partake in all those things. These are team shared things, and they could tell you how much they wanted you, right? You could just Chimney, I want you to come up here from Florida. You got the speed, you got the long arms, you got everything. You can be the next whoever, right? Mm-hmm. And that sounds good, right? The difference in this era is, all right, and I don't want to put everything on money because there's a lot of other things, but the difference is after everything shakes out, there's a value that the recruit could see and say, okay, this is how much they want. And it's not that clear cut from the school's point of view because the school has a budget. They're trying to recruit all different types of players. There's a lot of things that go into it. But from the recruit standpoint, it's like, okay, we did all that other stuff. I visited. I love the school. I want to be here. But this school values me this much, and this school values me this much. And it's not just the money that they're pocketing. It's also that feeling of, okay, they want me a little bit more because they place a higher price on my value. So that you have to take into account. And without knowing particulars, you don't know how much Oregon says they value Trey McNutt to come out west. Not to that team out west, like you said, but to the Ducks.
But thing to think about here, though, I mean, well, first off, we got to stick to the rules here because we know some programs, the NIL does not supposed to be a recruiting tool. That's, so we got to keep that in mind, man. But obviously, like you say, but what you said, that's how it goes, right? I remember coming out of college, right? We came out of college as far as going to the NFL, it's the lockout year, right? So you had a draft, no free agency. I wasn't drafted, one free agent. And I literally probably might have picked the wrong team because they offered me literally pennies more than the other teams. But it just seemed like, I got literally 15 minutes to make a decision, and it feels like, once again, the value is more here. They most want me more. And right.
Yeah, the Raiders.
It didn't work.
The Raiders drafted me. The Raiders drafted me. They drafted me. It was a lockout. First phone call. Hey, we're gonna draft you. Great. Talk to pass the phone. Talk to the owner. Talk to the head coach. Blah blah blah. Next time they call me and say, "Hey, we want your roommate, Brian Browning." no hi, no nothing. We want your roommate, Brian Browning. Obviously, they wasn't putting up any money. Wasn't putting up enough money, so things shook out how they did.
Yeah.
But so that's sometimes that's how it goes.
That's kind of how it goes, man. But yeah, man. So, not real quick. We got to talk about the team up north. Yeah. These guys, man, and the allegations. I think what's the term that they officially received the notice of notice of allegations against their program?
Notice of allegations. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the head coach, Ron Moore, obviously he's been in the mix. Him and I guess they said 7 other coaches. They went into the details of him. They got deleted. He tried to delete some messages between him and Connor Stallion. That's like some old school stuff. It hit the news. He tried to hit the delete on his Yeah, but yeah, man. So it looks like some penalty is it's officially will be coming the way of the team up north in that program. I mean, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, obviously we've been a figure is coming, but now we know something is coming their way.
Sure. Yeah, the more time passes, the more I kind of feel like the actual punishment won't be that severe. Like it's gonna be something. It's gonna be some impact. It's gonna hurt them a little bit, but they're not gonna. I feel like they won't take away their national championship, and I just feel like the college football is a little bit different today in that they hand out the punishments because they have to, but the NCAA is really incentivized by the money. I think they had all the power. They could just make a rule and they can, whatever they wanted, they could do whatever they wanted to do and maintain that power. I don't think they have the same level of power. I think they're more incentivized by the financials and the money being driven. And I thought Michigan winning the national championship was good for the money side. And I think Michigan had a lot of influence when it comes to decision making up top with the AD and other things. So I really don't feel like. I mean, we're gonna make a lot of noise about this. I'm gonna consistently talk about Michigan cheating all the way up until the supposedly hammer drops. But I don't expect the hammer to actually be that significant, and I don't think it hurts them in the grand scheme of things because I feel like the return on investment of doing the cheating and getting the little boost, however much it boosted, they end up winning the national championship. Everybody saw the national championship. There's going to be maybe some years of impact, but it's going to be recent enough to me that they'll be able to potentially bounce back from it. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what's your thoughts on it.
There should be an asterisk on that national championship, man. It should be an asterisk on it. Like you stated, I don't think the NCAA will do much, but they should. To me, they should go out and they should vacate wins, man. I mean, you're talking about, once again, we already know the allegations, but essentially they're not really allegations. We know that essentially that they came up with a plan. They sat down. They came up with a plan on how they was going to steal team signals and then go out into the game and uses them. What? It's the integrity of the game here is like, I feel like, we haven't seen the NCAA, obviously, that, we talk about the power and we all know what type of power they actually had to kind of put punishments in place. But we don't see some pretty harsh penalties for like recruitment stuff, right? We think this team is getting an advantage in recruiting, right? And so they kind of come down and slam, guys again incentivized to make money, make a couple dollars doing these things. None of this stuff affects what actually happens in the game, right? I mean, all the stuff you say, and we have seen some pretty harsh things come down. They cheated in the games. To me, if it's one thing you should, hold true, that we could penalize you for doing something, is something that's actually affecting the games. What is happening between the lines for those 60 minutes? So, I mean, obviously, I agree. I don't think much is going to come from it, but I just feel like this would be a great opportunity, NCAA, to kind of let people know that that you're still playing under our rule and kind of come down with something here pretty harsh. Because essentially, it's obviously Harbaugh ran, right? He got his title. He ran off. A lot of other coaches ran off, but that's still his program there, right? Sharon is one of his guys. We know assistant head coach, coached a couple games last season while Harbaugh was suspended. Drop the hammer, man. Drop the hammer.
In the 24-hour news cycle in the social media era, nobody cares about the integrity of the game anymore. I feel like nobody cares. They care about it for the day when it's hot, and then after that, nobody cares. And it's taking so long to make a decision and to go through the process. Everybody's gonna forget about it. The only people that really care about the integrity of the game it's gonna be Michigan State and Ohio State because they're the fans that feel like they've been wrong the most. The other teams in the Big Ten are gonna just try to continue to improve themselves, and the Michigan fans are gonna be homers and just they don't care about the integrity of the game. They don't care if they cheated.
They clearly don't care about the integrity.
And then everybody else is just gonna be focused on can we win or can we not win? And if it doesn't affect me, then it doesn't matter. So, but it doesn't excuse the fact that what happened. It definitely is worse than some of these recruiting violations that have big punishments. But I just don't see the actual punishment really amounting to much. But it doesn't change the fact that their rise in those few years really started with a cheating scandal.
A cheating scandal. That's for sure. NCAA, make us proud, man. Don't end up being a social media joke, man. Yeah, like do something. Like But we'll see. We'll see. But hey, that's our show for today. Always follow us on all platforms. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of those platforms. You can catch us on as camp progresses. We'll kind of have more about the competition if Coach Day makes a decision, and we'll come and give our thoughts on that as well. But that's our show for this week. We'll catch you next week, and all our shows with an OH.
Ayo.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.